Yes, everybody, welcome back to the channel. How's it going? Hope you're having a good Friday. Like the video, subscribe if you're new around here. We're going to be talking today about Sancho-Malen and Jadon Sancho. Remember him? And Dortmund. And it's always one of those, isn't it, with Borussia Dortmund and Jadon Sancho. There's always felt like he could go back there. And there was some links with Juventus, and you're like, well, they could go there as well. And there's a couple of clubs that always manage to do a little sneak deal and get bargain players. Now, supposedly, there is a meeting today in Dortmund to discuss Sancho-Malen and Jadon Sancho. And supposedly, Dortmund are going to ask for 30 million or Jadon Sancho in exchange. And you go, oh my God, we paid 75 million for him. We've essentially just paid 75 million again for Malen. And that's, for me, where you go, oh, this holds up. This doesn't feel like a bargain for Manchester United. And it feels like Dortmund are going to sit there with their arms folded like this. Go on, then. And it feels like Dortmund will probably get what they want, because that's how Dortmund rock it. Now, let's... Aside from the fact that United are getting shafted in this, is Malen a good player? Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's probably more in the... He's not far off a Sancho mold, actually, in terms of the way he plays. He is, a wide forward. He's probably more of a goal scorer than an assister. He comes in for himself rather than looking to create for others, which I guess is not what Sancho was about necessarily. But considering our lack of depth and options in the wide areas, and the fact that you're not getting 75 million, whether or not you think Sancho is still worth 75 million, the fact is he ain't, because there ain't a single person on the planet that thinks 75 million for a player that may or may not train well is a good idea. So this season he's got 5 goals and 2 assists in 19 games. He does primarily play as a right winger, but he has played on the left and he has played down the middle. If you remember, he was pretty good against us in pre-season. I think he's a solid little player, and I think he would be an asset to the club. It feels like the price ain't right, I'll be honest with you, but these are the situations that we find ourselves in this morning. And it's been reported by Christian Falk, who is pretty damn good when it comes to German football. So I reckon there's probably a lot of truth to this. Now, when he was asked if he'd have done something differently regarding his treatment of Sancho, Ten Hag has come out and said no, wouldn't do anything different. Interesting. Matic has been talking recently as well, and he talks about the fact that Pogba and Sancho were always late, a couple of the other players, and everyone else that was always on time was angry, so they had an internal disciplinary committee with Matic as its president. I wonder how Matic ended up as the president of that. But I like it, because there's nothing worse. When you're trying to have a professional environment, people just taking the piss. Like, you're paid very fucking handsomely. The least you could do is be on time for your work. You know what I mean? Elsewhere, it seems that United are listening to offers for a series of high-profile players. According to The Independent, Sancho is going to be joined by Varane and Casemiro, all on the transfer list. And the club might be flexible on other members as well. So, very interesting one. I mean, what do you guys think? Would you swap Malen? Or would you buy Malen? Or do you think that basically, if they're valuing Malen at 30 mil, the question is, if you bought Malen, could you get 30 mil for Jadon Sancho elsewhere? Or is the fact that Dortmund would be one of the only places that you could get any money for him, the only chance is a swap? So keep, swap or sell Jadon Sancho. Let me know in the comments. Mal says, what about Sancho's pay? Well, I guess if it's a swap, then he'd be the Dortmund problem and not the Manchester United problem. Ashley Bird says Sancho has to be the most disappointing transfer I can remember. Yeah, I would argue with that. JB says nonsense, paper talk, BS. You have to ask yourself, why on earth would Dortmund do this? Well, you've got to remember, in Dortmund's eyes, this kid was a ball hair underneath the likes of Messi. Like, that's the truth. That is the absolute truth. He was a ball hair underneath the likes of Messi, and he was unfucking real in a Dortmund shirt. Now, they might be thinking, getting back in the same environment he used to be in, getting back around whoever it was that was allowing him and facilitating him to be a professional while he was in Germany, and we'll get the same level of player again. Now, they might be wrong. They might be right. But ultimately, you can see why in their eyes that this is still a viable option and a viable transfer. Matt says, if Jadon had never had timekeeping in order and it was precluding him from being a good footballer, how did he end up doing what he did in Dortmund? He might have lived closer. Like, I don't know. I don't know the situation at all. Sanjay says, I would prefer a swap, but get someone who can contribute to our season. Yeah, I'd agree with that, because at the moment, regardless of what his fee is or how much he's worth, he literally contributes fuck all to Manchester United this season. Callum says Malen hasn't been good at Dortmund. He's had hype too. I disagree. I think he has been good. Saves Mount says Bundesliga Mickey Mouse competition. That's why. It's not necessarily though, is it? I mean, you've seen what Haaland's gone and done. You've seen what Jude Bellingham's gone and done. It isn't though, is it? Notch says Sellers, we obviously have to do something with him, and the lines have been drawn. IR says avoid Dortmund like the plague. PJS says swap Sancho for Vlahovic and add-ons. But is that an option on the table? Is it an option on the table that you can go and swap Vlahovic? You know, if it's not on the table, this isn't Tesco, and it's not a bartering market where you can just go in and be like, listen, I've had this idea. You know, you've got people involved who may or may not agree with those things. Joe says, Steve, I watch a lot of Bundesliga, especially Dortmund. Malen is not that good, but is he better than the nothing, literal nothing that we get out of Sancho? That's what we have to look at the moment. Matt says, have I heard any rumours or talk that could put a figure on how late he was being heard? Now, but pure speculation. No, I know that there was issues in terms of things going on in training, either application or lateness. So I don't know, it's hard to put on it. At the end of the day, if your employer doesn't think you're being professional, you can agree or you can disagree, but nothing's going to change unless you change your behaviour. You know, clearly the management thought whatever was going on with Sancho wasn't enough. So, you know. Ian says we need to strengthen the squad, even if it's one or two players in January. We absolutely need to strengthen the squad, and I think a centre half's going to be very high up on that list. You know, I think the players that you've got, so you've got 3 huge players in the squad at the moment, right? I think we would all agree on this. I genuinely think we'd all agree on this. And those 3 players that you've got right now are Varane, Casemiro, and Sancho. They're on probably not far off $1 million between them a week, which is a lot of cash. You know, that's a significant sort of status within the squad, and none of those 3 play. Now, okay, Casemiro is injured, but Casemiro also has potentially fell off. Is he going to get to the heights that we saw middle of last season? It's an unknown quantity at the moment. Varane and the manager seemingly have fell out, and Sancho and the manager have definitely fell out. So those 3 people are not contributing to Manchester United at the moment. The one who might, I think, is Casemiro. The other 2, I would look to try and move them off as fast as you can. But the problem is you can't bang, you know, a photograph of the pair of them on the front of EastEnd and just put for fucking sale, can you? Because then what happens is you get completely mugged off when it comes to buy them. So I think you have to play the game of like, look, yeah, they are for sale, but not really for sale, and all the rest of it. And then, you know, if you get rid of Varane, you bring someone like a Todibo in or a Danso in, and you have a decent second half of the season with some quality footballers. Hopefully Martinez returning as well. There's 2 new players that are going to feature in the squad. That would level us up. Then you can hopefully bring in a midfielder we should probably do a video on that, looking at who the realistic options for us to bring in midfield would be, and what the profile of that player is. I would suggest it's someone who is a box-to-box player that's actually good on the ball. So Scott McTominay would be a box-to-box player, but not good on the ball. So can we get someone that's got that sort of physical profile, but maybe is actually pretty good at taking the ball from the defence as well? And then I think you can make a case for a forward. And like some people have asking, actually, there's a question here from Jibak says, do I genuinely believe Malen is a United quality player, though? Worried that he'll be another underwhelming squad player for us. I think that's exactly what he will be. Maybe not underwhelming, but I mean, potentially will be. But I think that's exactly what he'll be. I don't think he is someone that pushes the upper limit. I think he's someone who lifts the floor, which isn't a bad thing. Let's see what other comments we have got. Send a catalogue of players for sale to Saudi. Lee says he's made millions training with the reserve. Shame it didn't work out, but definitely get rid for me. Keep the good work. Really enjoy the videos. Thank you. Shakespeare says Cass has time. Hopefully the guy to mentor new talent. Stephen says stop buying players from Dortmund. Why though? I'll just give you a couple there, right? So Dortmund sold 3 players recently, big ones. Sancho, Bellingham, Haaland. 2 of them are going to be battling out for Ballon d'Ors, and we signed the other one. But at the time, he was the one with the numbers that would back him up doing something outrageous. So I don't think just blanket, don't sign anyone from Dortmund. I think do a bit more research into stuff. Project says, just read an opinion piece how he's just another inconsistent hot and cold player. Might be what we have to do. Would I take Mason back? No. My stance on Mason was my stance on Mason from the get-go, and I truly believe everybody's stance on Mason should be your stance on what you believe has happened. And I know a load of people will be like, well, the case was dropped, this, that, and the other. It's irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. It really is. He wasn't proven innocent. The case was dropped. So I would say your stance on Mason shouldn't be dictated on how good of a footballer he is. Your stance on Mason should be on what you believe happened. And my stance on it is, I think what I believe happened. And I don't want that person to represent Manchester United. That's my belief. So it shouldn't change just because he has a good season in La Liga. Like that's pathetic. Because then you're basically saying that you allow people to get away with things just if they're good at their sport, and that's not right. And I know loads of you will disagree, and that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion, I'm entitled to mine. Ant says he never once protested his innocence either, all in caps. James says Palina, no one's saying it, but he could control the midfield and has the legs and dominance and technical ability. Yeah, we'll do a video looking into options. It's in the middle of the season. I personally don't think it's as hard as people sort of tend to make it out, but clearly there is a level of it is as hard as some people will make it out because people are reluctant to sell. ADHD says, lad, by the law, that makes him definitively innocent, though. Look, I'm not getting into it. And it doesn't. It just means he hasn't been convicted. Not being convicted doesn't mean innocent. And, okay, maybe there's legal definitions of this, that, and the other, but, stop fucking about. You know the truth. Or, you know what you saw. You know what's happened since. And you know the motivations some people might have. So, no, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. And we're not going to agree on it, so I'm not going to argue. KD says Leon Bailey I've always thought should be at United. CTB says, what would Dortmund really front all Sancho's wages? No way they're agreeing to that. I can't comment on that, in all honesty. Ant says, been saying Palhinha for time. Sickens me they got him for 20 mil just weeks after we paid 70 for Anthony. Yeah, but guess what? We'd have the opportunity to pay 70 now. 1,000,000%. You wouldn't be getting any change out of 70 right now, I don't think. Cowboy says Palhinha's a good player, just not good enough for a solo six, though. I don't think he would be playing as a six. Mal says the trouble with that is surely everyone's entitled to redemption sometime. Yeah, maybe they are, right? But that doesn't mean you get to play for Manchester United. It's an incredibly privileged position. And that's my opinion. Again, you're entitled to yours. I'm entitled to mine. Questions have we got? Vincent says, sorry, late to this, but we have Ahmad coming back into training, so is it wise to be getting Malen if he's not going to be at the level we need? Well, the man that can make that decision is Ten Hag, isn't it? So we will see. The Fulham fancy Jadon? Probably fucking not. Will we finish above Villa? Yes, I think we will. Lee says, on a brighter note, did we see Slippy G calling Ronaldo our GOAT? Yeah, that's the pull of the Saudi money is strong. Harry Maguire, player of the month, thoughts? I think he's had some good defensive performances for United and some shocking in possession performances for United, and I don't necessarily think he can be considered player of the month, but you know, sometimes these things are wrong. Ginola was player of the year when United won the treble. These things are not always scientific. I thought Doku was probably player of the month, but it is what it is. ADHD says, I don't want him back, but the court of public opinion is a dangerous precedent to set. Unfortunately, the court of public opinion was what was quoted when things got put out in public. Ant says, controversial. I have a feeling Bournemouth might be more difficult than Liverpool. I don't think it's controversial, mate. I think it's just wrong. Liverpool are going to fucking pump us. Like, I don't see a scenario in which Manchester United get a result at all at Anfield. I don't think we're capable of it. I don't think we've got the squad for it. I can just see us getting fucking rolled. And obviously I don't want that to happen, but I can definitely fucking see that happening. Sam says, despite his shortcomings, Maguire deserved it given the story arc from where he was. He wasn't picked up playing fucking park football, was he? He was an £80 million former, very recently Manchester United captain. Fuck me. Like, how much gravy are people trying to fucking pour on this sob story? Get a fucking grip. He was a player who was dropped from his team because he was shit. That's the truth. And he's come back and been less shit. He's been better defensively. He's not been better on the ball. He's been better defensively. And he's had a series of games that have really suited him, and he's looked good defensively in those games. That doesn't mean player of the month. And the story arc shouldn't have fuck all to do with it. It should be just the merit of, were you the best player in the league this month? And I don't think he was. Fucking Christ. James says, Rooney manager of Birmingham, now he's Jude Bellingham's boyhood idol. It hasn't gone well for Rooney, has it? That was a mad move, man. The geezer, I can't remember the guy's name now, that they got rid of, had him flying in the playoffs. And Rooney's coming. I think he's got one win under his belt. It might be two now, but fucking Christ. Theo says, did I see Klopp again losing his marbles? Yeah, do you know what? Jurgen Klopp is a fucking ball bag. And the way he speaks to the press is a fucking disgrace. Like, he gets asked really simple questions and takes them so fucking wrong and so personal and comes back with the snarkiest, shittest answers. Everybody in the media is either too scared of him or are just too pandering to him to be like, what the fuck sort of answer is that, you prick? Because that's how the answer should be. Like, it's just bully moves, man, because he knows that these fucking journalists can't say shit to him. It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. Like, you've seen his arse the other day because the opposition was celebrating and he could hear it. Oh, fucking diddums. That's what happens. It's football. People get fucking giddy and excited and passionate about it. Fucking helmet. Joe, look, I'm not going over this constantly. It says, has Johnny Evans, Van Persie, Anthony, Ronaldo not had cases against them? They have, right? They have. Hang on, wait, I need to fucking address that comment. They have had cases against them. Here's the difference. We didn't see any of the evidence for that, and we saw the evidence for that. So for what happened with Mason, or we saw some stuff that went out with Mason. And if you don't think that changes it, then you're wrong, because it absolutely changes it. Seeing and hearing things absolutely changed the whole fucking narrative of everything, right? Simple as that. And some of these had cases, and they were quashed for different fucking reasons. Like, you can't just put and go, these are all the same. They're not the same. They're not the same. Richard says, have a word with Culture Cam saying Terry better than Rio. At what? Legitimately at what? Heading. I'll give you that, right? Heading, probably better. Everything else, no. 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 At what? Like, legitimately at what? John Terry and Steven Gerrard are the most bafflingly over-fucking rated. Like, literally, they both had partners in the squads that allowed them to look good. They did. Carvalho made Terry look good, and Xabi Alonso made Steven Gerrard look good. Actually, I don't even know if he made him look good, but he was just a better player than him in that midfield. Fucking... I'm gonna text Cam and be like, can you please explain what the fuck you're talking about? John Terry wasn't fucking good at all. John Terry would literally be like Steve Bruce, which is good, I guess, but it's not the fucking like all-time Hall of Fame that he thinks he fucking belongs in. Absolute sausage. Put it this way: do you ever see anyone say, let's target Rio Ferdinand? Because that happened with John Terry. Opposition manager come out and said, target John Terry because he's positioning shit. And we'll drag him out of position and then we'll attack that hole. That's what happened. Germany, 2010 or 12. Can't remember. Joachim Low. Go and search it. Joachim Low, John Terry. You'll find the article. It happened. Overhyped. Anyways, cheers for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe if you are new. And I will see you in the next one. Laters. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, five-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.